Hello and welcome, I'm Ceri Griffiths and I'm here in association with Katy Designs, and I'm excited to share with you the newest addition to the Creative Cake system. Now what we've got here is we've got the rope and pearl border. Cute little border, easy finishes. I could use some of this in various different ways. I'll show you one or two ways as we make our way through the video. I could use this and cut it into square frames, rectangular frames. I could actually use it around an oval, maybe a cameo, or I could use it as a bottom border on a cake, and I'll show you some of the tips and tricks of actually drawing them up as we go along. Now, what paste am I using? I'm using a paste which I call an adjusted paste. It's just any sugar paste or fondant mixed with phthalo powder, and if you do want to see the recipe in full and see me making it, then just have a look at the video I've made for you just to explain everything as we go along. So I have my paste here. Now the first thing we need to do with any of our moulds is actually dust them with cornstarch or corn flour. Now we use this instead of using icing sugar, because if you use icing sugar, the sugar will attract any moisture and become a syrup. So I put it in and then I give it a good tap out. You don't want any of it left in the mould. Then take a good piece of your paste. Remember, when you're not using your paste, keep it under a container just to make sure that it doesn't dry out. And then I find it best to roll this into a long sausage. Now you're probably going to need a lot less than you think for this mould. So remember, you can always add more, but it's trickier to take some away. So I've rolled it out quite thin now, as you can see. It's pretty much half of the width of the mould. That for me is enough. So turning it on one side, I have hot sticky fingers, so I put some cornstarch on them. And then what I do is I call it walking the mould. So I walk my fingers down the mould, just pushing it really firmly in place. Now go in there and work it along so it comes all the way to the edge of the mould. Now if you do need to put any more paste in, basically just take a little bit of the paste, roll it into a longer sausage, and then you can always lay it on top and push it in from behind. It's easier to do that than to cut it out. So as you can see, I'm making sure that I've made all the edges are nice and clean. Now if you're someone who uses a rolling pin, you could come along the back and just give it a gentle roll just to smooth it out. Now you've noticed I've left the tabs on the end of here. That again is just to help me demold it. It gives me a bit more gravity to pull it out of the mould. So I'm going to open the mould out. As you can see, it's already releasing. Flip it over. I'm going to open this mould out and walk my fingers along the back. And voila, that gives me one beautiful mould that is rope and pearl mould. Then the next thing I would do, I'd just go in and I would just trim it down, taking the ends off. Let's put that to one side a second. Now, there is a trick to actually seamlessly joining this up. If, say for example, I had just square ends and I pushed them together, I'm always going to have a bit of a visible line there. So to disguise it a little more, I'm going to cut on an angle. So when you look at this, you'll see where the dragees or the sugar pearls are. If you cut between them at a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to cut in a different place so it's obvious it wouldn't normally match back together. This way, when I piece them together, you get almost a seamless finish. I would then take a small modelling tool and just make sure that the top and bottom edges meet up, and that's the way I would get a seam if I was doing around the cake. So that's the first version of this. That's it as it comes out of mould. Now let's have a look at the fluted addition to this mould. Now we've given you options here because we like to give you value for money, to give you a fully detailed mould, to give you something you can do more than one thing with. So I'm going to need a bit less paste for this one. But as we've done before, take our cornstarch or corn flour, not icing sugar, put it in there, give the mould a good knockout. Now this one will take even less paste again. So roll your paste into a long sausage. Remember, it's always easier to add than it is to take away. If you do need to clean the back of a mould, by the way, do not be tempted to use a sharp knife or a small palette knife to skim along. Use a plastic modelling tool. You don't want to damage your mould. So I place that in there. As you can see, it's almost filled the mould, but I've left the scallops here apart. That way, that means I can fill into those. Little bit of corn flour on my finger. I found if I come along and press down where each of the scallops are, I encourage the paste to go up to that top edge, all the way to the end, and then I'm going to do a rocking action, so I'm going to push alternately with each finger just to make sure I'm getting a nice clean edge to all of those scallops, so I don't have any fringing on the mould when it comes out. Take your time to really look at this edge here. That's where you want it to be as clean as possible. Work my way up to the top. Again, if you're one of these people who uses a rolling pin, just a gentle roll over it. Don't power into it, because if you power down, you're going to thin out parts of this. So make sure you just do a gentle roll. Again, clean down the edges. You should be able to see all of the little points along here at the scalloped edge before you take it off. Now again, as I said before, open it a bit like a book just to ease it away. Flip it over. Again, we're going to lift up the sides and walk our fingers down. And how beautiful is that? So we've got a really nice rope here and the pearls there. This is one of those, I said, it makes great for cookies. I could actually work on it, cut it into different shapes. Now, exactly as I did before, I can cut this on an angle to join it up. But there are a few things you need to remember. You have to consider the peak in the scallop. So cut on an angle from that scallop across. So if I take another section here at a 45-degree angle, you can see now those should marry up nicely. Once they're married up, always go in with a little modelling tool just to make sure that the scallop matches the scallops either side of it. So that's the basic use. So let's show you something a little clever with this mould. Now, if you wanted to do something and add a bit more wow to it, this is quite a nice way of adding a little bit of colour, or doing white on white, whichever you wish. Now for this video I'm actually going to use blue dragees or blue sugar pearls. The ones we recommend are a 4mm. 4mm are about the right size to fit in the indentation. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to drop them into where the pearls on this mould are. Now this can be a little time consuming, but it's worth it in the end. So I prepped my mould. I'll now take a piece of paste. Now this time, remember, you're going to take a little bit less paste because the dragees or the sugar pearls are actually going to fill in where the paste was before. So again, roll it to a longish sausage. The technique for this is slightly different, however. Now, if I was to lay this sausage directly on top of those sugar pearls, you would find they dislodge the sugar pearls. So I just run a little bit of corn flour or cornstarch on it, put a bit on my finger and press this slightly flat to start with. Bring your mould in now, then lay this directly on top of the pearls, and the first thing you need to do is to press down onto the pearls. Make sure you've got cornstarch or corn flour on your fingers, just to make sure you don't stick and pull it back up. Then I press on either side just to make sure that the rope is fully in contact. Work your way along. Now by here it looks like I haven't got enough paste, so I'm just going to take a little piece, roll it quite thinly and push it into the main body of the mould, and then it'll work its way down to the side. Once you've got it fully embedded in the mould and it's flush and you can see the sides, you can take a rolling pin. Try not to roll it this way, because what you'll do is you push all the dragees out. Go this way and gently rock it back and forth from side to side, and that'll embed the pearls or the sugar pearls in the middle, but it will give you a flatter surface to the back. I'm then going to open this up like a book as I did before, flip it over, open it up and walk it away. And how fantastic is that? Again, if I want to actually add it to another one, if I cut it at a 45-degree angle, then I would be able to abut them to each other. But I think that's a great quick way to give you the wow factor. Imagine that around a baby boy's christening cake, or even doing it cream on white or white on white for a wedding. So hopefully you like the rope and pearl borders mold as much as I do, and I'm looking forward to see what you do with it. So bye bye for now.